Hey everyone, it's Arminder here. Welcome to the Rum Revival, and today I want to talk about this rum right here. This is the Finest Mauritius from Bristol Spirits. They are a independent bottler out of the UK, and they finally just started getting imported here in the US, which is awesome. And this rum is one of the first 6 or 7 of their initial releases here in the States. And as the label suggests, as the name suggests, this is a rum from Mauritius. This is an unaged, column distilled cane juice rum bottled at 43% ABV. Now, if you're not familiar, Mauritius is a small island off the coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. And this is made at Labourdonnais Distillery. Labourdonnais, I think, is how you pronounce it, but I could be wrong, and it is almost midnight, and there's no way I'm going to learn French between now and when I go to sleep, so we are just gonna go with that for now. This is actually probably the first unaged Mauritius rum I've had. I've had aged expressions from, I don't know, probably different distilleries. Maybe I've had like 4 or 5 different Mauritius rums, aged Mauritius rums, but this is my first unaged one, and that was a big reason why I wanted to buy this. I think it cost me around $45, which you may think might be on the pricier side given the specs. Now, part of that might be the fact that it had to go from Mauritius to the UK and eventually got imported into the US. So there's that added level to it, maybe. But I always think, like, you know, whatever you're paying for an unaged cane juice rum is probably a steal, because they are amazing and they get undervalued and frankly, underpriced, especially compared to the quality of the spirit. But either way, yeah, you could probably get some stuff that's 40% ABV. That's, $15 cheaper, like the Clement stuff, the Blanc, the Rum Jam Blanc, but frankly, those aren't that good. So on the aroma, I am getting definitely a little bit of like green grape, but really the thing that really kind of stands out is this aroma of like a crisp white wine. And for me, I'm gonna say it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Sauvignon Blanc. Now, real talk, I don't really know anything about wine, so I have very little experience with any kind of wine, let alone a Sauvignon Blanc, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. Those tend to be a little light, crisp, and sometimes a little tart, I think, and kind of minerally, I think. And this kind of just evokes a little bit of that, but it also evokes on the aroma either like a light, crisp apple cider or like a Belgian Saison, like a light, crisp Belgian Saison, like Saison DuPont, if anyone's familiar with that. It has this kind of slightly funky, I guess what I'm trying, it has this aroma of slight brine, slight dry hay quality to it. I've had a few kind of apple ciders that have been fermented with Belgian yeast or like with Brettanomyces, which I don't know if it's a yeast stain or bacteria, but whatever it is, you'll sometimes get it in sour beers and Belgian beers, and it creates that funky, dry horse blanket kind of note, which is a note people sometimes use to describe some of that stuff. Horse blanket. I don't know what a horse blanket is. I'm assuming it's a blanket for a horse. I think that's kind of obvious, but I could be wrong. And I've never seen one, never smelt one, never eaten one, so I don't know what it's supposed to smell or taste like, but that's what people use to describe some of those ciders and beers that I like, and I know what those smell and taste like. So I'm gonna use that to describe this. But it's a little dry hay. It's a little Belgian-y. It's really hard to describe, but horse blanket. I think another way to describe it is a little Band-Aid. Yeah, Band-Aid or bandage? What is it? I guess a Band-Aid is a branded version of a bandage, right? I think. But a little bit of bandage and a little bit of brine. I think that's kind of ultimately what I'm trying to go for. A little bit of like dry hay as well. It's a little light, the aroma. Like it's not going to hit you over the head when you crack it open or pour yourself some. And you kind of have to sit with it a little bit. But I kind of like its softness, because I think if it was higher and amped up, that horse blanket, I keep wanting to say horse feather. The horse blanket note, I think would be too overpowering and too strong and too distracting. I think at this ABV, I think it's just the right amount of it. But anyways, let's give it a sip. So, on the palate, first of all, that's tasty. It's not big and bold. It's 43% ABV. Surprisingly, more flavor than I would have thought for a 43% ABV rum, but still light and delicate on the palate. It does have like a nice slight kind of silky body to it, medium-ish. And it's kind of nice. And I almost initially feel like it's going to be like a very pleasant, gentle sugar cane juice flavor experience on the palate. And it is that for a lot of it. Just that taste of fresh cane. You know, there's a sweetness there, but there's also like a little bit of a green earthiness there. So I'm getting that, and that's all nice. And if it was all that, it'd be a little, frankly, okay and fine. Maybe a little boring. Not bad, but a little boring. But then, towards the back end and the finish is when it turns, and I get that brine and that bandage. Again, it's kind of interwoven, those two notes, and it turns, makes a little bit of a turn, and that is now suddenly interesting, a little, engaging. It's not a bold note. Like I said, it's not bold in the beginning. It's not really bold on the end. It lingers, though. That kind of brine and bandage finish does kind of stay with you, but it's not a bold finish at all. And I really like that. I really like that combination of that brine, of that bandage. And it really does, in my limited experience with things in the world, remind me of those Brett fermented Belgian beers and sour beers, that flavor of that dry hay, that horse blanket again, that little bit of brine, that whatever those flavors actually are, I don't know, but these are the words that I limited words that I have to kind of describe that flavor. Maybe I'm not doing a good enough job, but there's enough there that just really kind of intrigues me. So I think it has good flavor. It's definitely on the lighter, softer, delicate side, but even within that space, I think it shines more than you would think. It gives you more than you would think, for sure. I don't feel like it's really ultimately lacking anything. I kind of like to have rums in my collection that are on the lower ABV side, an alternative to some of the big, bold, crazy, high-octane rums that I drink. That sometimes I just want to reach for and not overly think about, but have a note or two that kind of come out that I can be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Drink it again. Oh yeah, that's cool. And not like constantly be fixated on it. That being said, I don't think I'm going to always reach for this. It's not one of the immediately going to go to the top of my kind of rotation. But when I am in the mood for that Brett Belgian slight funky briny bandage kind of note, then yeah, I'm definitely going to reach for it. But the thing in that area where I think this particularly excels at is in cocktails, specifically in daiquiris and tea punches. I've made a couple of both of those over the last week, and I've really impressed because it really creates, for both of those cocktails, an incredibly sessionable, drinkable, crushable cocktail that still has a good amount of flavor. I think, though, you do lose that kind of that bready brine bandage note, and you get more in the daiquiri, some more fruitier aspects of the rum kind of pull up, and then in the tea punch it gets more of that sweet, earthy, green cane note, which is great. I love that it evolves and it changes in those cocktails, but they're just remarkably crushable and drinkable, and just has just the right amount of flavor to it to keep it engaging. And I think, so as I get closer to the summertime, that's where I'm really going to dive into this bottle, I think, and really kind of probably work my way through it. Between now and then, I might dip back to it a handful of times, but I could see myself easily killing a whole bottle over the course of like 2-3 months, just from some like great daiquiris and great tea punches. And I love that. I love knowing that I have a bottle or two that are my summertime go-to bottles. One of them is the Worthy Park Silver. I love that. It's got, again, same thing. That's 40% ABV, but it has a good amount of like funky Jamaican Worthy Park banana note to it. So it creates these flavorful yet crushable cocktails. This is kind of doing the same thing, but in the unaged cane juice side of things. Great to have both of them in the rotation for the summer. But that's kind of ultimately where I land on this. I like it as a sipper. I think it's interesting. I think I really, really like it in the type of cocktails where I just want to drink a lot of. So that's it for this video. I am looking forward to eventually working my way through a couple more of the Bristol rums. So you'll see videos hopefully on them in the coming week or two. And if you want to support this channel, check out my Patreon page. I have tons of exclusive content there. Plus, you get access to the Rum Revival Discord channel where you can talk about rum with other rum lovers and rum fans. It's a great community. People like to share what they're drinking in the moment, whether it's a cocktail or a rum. It's a fun way to kind of share and kind of do a little bit of flexing, I guess. And it's a great place to kind of just ask people questions about rum, whether if anyone's had something and you're curious, should you buy it, or that kind of stuff. It's a great place with some really cool people. Love for you to join us. Come check it out. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.